Good morning and welcome to new edition of Dr.Lamba's Awakening Call. Today, more than a million people are celebrating Krishna's birthday. And today I recall Hafiz Jalandhari, the famous poet who wrote the national anthem of Pakistan. His famous poem was Krishna Kanhaiya, possibly an exception that a devoted votary of Pakistan, an ardent lover of Pakistan, could celebrate Krishna in Krishna Kanhaiya. And I like to start with using his line, "A Hind ke Raja, ek baar phir aaja." O King of India, come just once more, recalling Krishna. Show the yearning of the people all over, without exception, who realize the importance of Krishna, who realize his relevance today, world, who realize how appropriate his message has been over the ages. So, Ahind ke Raja, ik baar phir aaja. O King of India, just come once more. That cry of Hafiz Jalandhari is in fact the best celebration of Krishna. I admire Krishna not as a religious leader. No, I admire him for his extreme empathy, for his extreme strategy, his leadership, his logic, and his philosophy enshrined in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is one of the chapters of Mahabharata, which is the longest national and religious epic ever written in the history of the world. If you look at all the religions, no other epic is as long as Mahabharata is. And it covers an enormous amount of all philosophical, theological, and historical material. The stories related to Mahabharata are well known amongst all the Hindus and throughout the Indian society, other South Asian society, and now even in other parts of the world. There is even a Jain version of the poem with alterations reflecting the traditional theology. Mahabharata has a profound influence through the 700 verse portion of its known called Bhagavad Gita in Gita, the masterpiece of Krishna, the moral implications of Hindu tradition and its relationship with duty, which is dharma, action, which is karma, and devotion, which is bhakti, is thoroughly explored. As a matter of fact, for the first time, somebody in the history of the world combined duty with action and with a clarion call to do your job without fear or favor. And the text in Bhagavad Gita has been so powerful that today it is one of the most important readings in Harvard Business School. I wrote a couple of articles showing how important they are for management. And actually, they are not only important for the management, they are important for governance. When we say the governance in the countries is not appropriate, it is because of the lack of direction. And that direction is provided by Bhagavad Gita. And Janmashtami is the day when we can take stock of these things. Non religious, absolutely, but pertaining to life. And that would show the relevance and the appropriateness of Krishna today as it was 5,000 years back. The text of Bhagavad Gita has inspired people like Mahatma Gandhi and other leaders of the Hindu reform movement during civil disobedience while fighting against colonialism. But then it was not confined to the Indian leaders. David Thoreau, T.S. Eliot, Martin Luther King, all of them great in their own spheres, absolute great thinkers and philosophers. They were inspired and impacted by Bhagavad Gita. Once again, I'll refer to the impact of Krishna and Bhagavad Gita on all religions. They say synchronization is there. All religions ultimately are not watertight compartments, and thoughts of one impact another. But then, when an ardent Muslim talks of Krishna, that's quite something amazing. Even the opening lines are quite abstract. After asking whether Krishna is a reality or representation, Mani hai ki surat. He's not sure whether he was a reality or representation, but he refers to Krishna as a form of light. Pekar e tanveer is the word used. The ray of light. Now, as the ray of light dispels darkness, so does Krishna dispel darkness in the days of horror, fear, and trembling caused by the fear, whether it's a war or whether it's by coronavirus. Hafiz Jalandhari refers to Krishna as a form of light and clear asks a question: Is he fire or light? Ye nar hai ya noor? Imagine it. Fire cleanses. Fire is supposed to burn, but it cleanses as well. And noor is light, all spreading, dispelling darkness and fear. These descriptions are well meaning. And if I look at the articles by Sharil Imam and Squabik Salim, they suggest that Jalandhari is referring to Krishna as being light. That is an age-old belief of a section of Islamic scholars that Krishna was a prophet sent to the people of the subcontinent. So the part of the Muslim theology accepts Krishna as one of the prophets. As a matter of fact, I was amazed to see when I was reading history of Hamdan Dalmi, his chapter Al-Kaf, and in that it's mentioned that Muhammad declared there was a prophet of God in India who is dark in color and his name is Khan. Now Khan is Kana. That's the one name of Krishna by which Radha used to call him. And this is in the history of Hamdan Dalmi. And the chapter, as I said, is Al-Kaf. Some people say that it's not proper hadith, but it's never been objected to, and basic Islamic jurisprudence holds that if it doesn't contradict Quran, then it's to be accepted. And Quran doesn't mention anything. So Lord Krishna was not a prophet of God according to Sunnah, but hadith here, the history very clearly says that he was God. But then I'm not talking of that. As a matter of fact, I was reading another 19th century scholar, Muhammad Qasim Nanovi, and in his book Dharm Prachar, page 8, and Debate Shah Jahanpur, page 31, he refers to this hadith and says clearly that Lord Krishna was a true prophet of God. No, I'm not quoting Muslims to buttress anything, but only to show that even hardcore Islamists believe in the authenticity of Krishna. And that's a great thing. As a matter of fact, you cannot deny that Krishna has impacted Sikhism a lot. His call of karma, do thy duty, is the same. And when he tells Arjun to pick up the arms and fight Kauravas, even they might be relations, and in the process he might be killing his grandfather, great grandfather, and he might be killing his teacher and his cousins and uncles and all. He says that do your job because you are doing it for the sake of the faith, for the sake of the justice, for being honest, authenticity. But the same is echoed by Gobind Singh when he says that he wants to fight for justice. And Gobind Singh also has said the same thing. Jo lare deen ke het sura soi. The brave man fights for his principles. So this concept of fighting for your principles and upholding them, and most important, there's emphasis on truth, purity. And as I said, I don't worship like Krishna. Krishna is one of my heroes. But then he himself was not that religious. If we look at the history of Krishna and the contemporary time, you would find there were only two instances in the whole life of Krishna when he performed formal religious worship. And both the times he did not worship God, he worshipped nature, pantheism. The first is when he instructed the people to worship Govardhan Hill. And he said, don't worship Indra, worship Govardhan, which protects us. That's a nature. And the second time he worshipped the sun to cure his own son, the god son to cure his child. The other time he cleans the river. He's an environmentalist. You can't deny it. He swallowed the forest fire. Krishna's history shows that he cleaned the river, then he swallowed the forest fire to protect the wildlife and the biodiversity. He was always protecting nature because he loved nature. And possibly, that's why I would say that he was the first environmentalist. He wanted to protect the environment and he was, again, against wanton destruction. He said war should be there. He said fight for your right for justice. But he also said don't cause destruction heedlessly, mindlessly. And that's why when Arjun wanted to use Brahmashastra against Karna, and Brahmashastra is equivalent to using a nuclear bomb, he forbade him to do it. He said, no, don't do it. This is uncalled for. Destruction of life, which is not involved in your conflict, is prohibited. So, a first great scientist, environmentalist, protector of nature, protector of justice, fighting for justice and the rights. That is something great about him. Then, his egalitarianism. He could partake of the poor fare given by his friend Sudama. Sudama was hesitant to offer him the food which his wife had sent, but Krishna took it. Then another thing, he was bountiful. The way he helped Draupadi with serving the rishis with his is same, in all religions, but then that shows his empathy. So on this day of Janmashtami, it's not to sing, pray or celebrate. It's not to get dahi handi, the hanging earthen pot of yogurt, but it's a day meant for deeper devotion and contemplation. This is the day when Krishna became the teacher who guided humanity towards truth. This is the day when people have to walk the path shown by Bhagavad Gita and dedicate themselves to cultivate the qualities. And the qualities are what? First is Vivek. Vivek is a fine sense of discrimination. The subtle nuances of the truth and the falsehood have to be differentiated and proper action taken. The second is Vijnana, ultimate knowledge, and Vairagya, dispassion, detachment. Happiness comes when you are detached. This is called absolute detachment, but still involved. There's a difference. So these teachings, this path shown by Bhagavad Gita, is something which needs to be cultivated and celebrated. It's not singing bhajans, that doesn't help. But definitely, the light shown by Krishna is in fact not the light of Asia. And Krishna's teachings of management, of strategy, of environment, and of war, but primarily of governance. Governance of based on detachment, governance based on truth, honesty, authenticity. These are the calls that need to be celebrated. Would we do that? That's $1 million question. But that's the need of the day. Thank you.